So going to be checking out Stephen A. Smith. He's going to talk about Trump's cabinet appointments and apparently the lack of black appointments. So let's see what he has to say.
But first up on the docket, we're going to get started in the world of President-elect Donald Trump, where ABC News is reporting black conservatives are feeling left out based on appointments and nominations for his upcoming term. Last month, Trump appointed Scott Turner, who was executive director of the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council during Trump's first term, to serve as secretary of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. One area of frustration for many black Republicans was speculation that if Trump did nominate an African American to his administration, it would be at HUD, the department that has had the most black secretary appointments of any. At the time of this taping, 53 Trump nominees have been reported. One is black. That's it.
So here's what a lot of people need to understand. As far as, I hate labels, but I guess you could say I'm a person that thinks more on the conservative side. Democrats care so much about just representation. Democrats thinking is, well, we just gonna put a black face or a person of color in a certain position, and that's just gonna make the black folks happy. That's what they care about. And where has that gotten the black population as a whole? We can look at the current administration. You can look at Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, black woman, married to a white man. That means something. They asked her in the Senate hearing, can she define what a woman was? She couldn't define what a woman was. All these work virtue signals. Person sitting on the Supreme Court, what can they do for society as a whole, really? But goes back to that representation. You see a black face up there, you automatically think, I don't think this, but I'm like, it has no effect on my life whatsoever. He selected a so-called black vice president who is a complete idiot, who can't even cogently put a sentence together, who can't answer questions, who is allegedly drunk all the time, who is incompetent, who is very not a leader, a person who throughout her positions that she has had an average of 90% of staff turnover. That means something, because the highest turnover rate as far as the workforce is in retail, and that's at 70%. And you're talking about millions of people. And then you have someone like her who has 60, 70 people, and your turnover rate is 92%. That only says something about leadership. So, but consider the source of what Stephen A is talking about. He's talking about ABC News, which is a Democratic left-leaning propaganda machine, just like most other media outlets. But what they fail to realize is that we don't care. We do not care. We always lean toward put the best person in there. If they all white and they're the best, if you think they're the best person, put them there. If they all black, if you think they're the best person, put them there. If they're all Chinese, Arab, Latino, put them there. Who cares that there's only one black person? And even with the one black person, that ain't good enough. They had to marginalize that by saying, well, that's the one appointment that most black people have been appointed to out of any of them. See, even that ain't good enough. We don't care about this representation in the highest form, which is a very small percentage, because the bottom line is what's good for the country is good for the people in the country as a whole. Hello, I'm a person in this country. I stand to benefit when the country does good. So do you. So do people you know. Don't put people in these positions just because of the way that they look. Put these people in these positions based on their qualifications or the way that you think that they can get the job done.
And a total of 5 are people of color.
People of color.
A couple of things I wanted to bring up. I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. Trump proclaims to be cool with the brothers and fellas and what have you, and but when it's time to appoint people to positions of power,
he can be cool with the brothers and the fellas. If I was in his position, I'm not putting nobody in no position just because I'm cool with them. Then there's some type of automatic expectation that I'm going to be nicer or more lenient on them. No, bro, do your job. You can be my brother. If I hire you, I'm not hiring you because you're my brother, my blood brother. I'm hiring you because I think you can do the job. If you can't do the job, peace, deuces. You get a nice little severance package, especially if you're in the government.
Folks are choosing folks they're accustomed to, who look like them, share their cultural identity, things of that nature. You're expecting me to be overly critical of Trump about this. I'm not. The fact of the matter is that folks lost the right to complain. Folks lost the right to complain, even the black conservatives. Because if you're a black conservative, now remember, we're not talking about truth for a second, we're talking perception. If you are a black conservative and you heard about Project 2025, and you're looking at the Supreme Court and folks who've been placed on the Supreme Court and some of the decisions that they have made against things like affirmative action at institutions of higher learning, and of course Roe v. Wade and other things. If you want to point to all of these things, you kind of knew this stuff was coming. See, in the end, at some point in time, we got to grow up and recognize the fact that Donald Trump, as much as folks want to accuse him of being a pathological liar, there are some things he was flat out open and honest about. That's what he's going. That is about him doing what he wants to do, when he wants to do, for whomever he wants to do it to, and everybody else be damned. And that is what is taking place right now. Now, if you're a black conservative like a Tim Scott, you're a black conservative like a Byron Donald, you're a black conservative like the Larry Elders of the world or various others, I can get where you're coming from. But
I'm just going to put my little 2 cents on Tim Scott. Of course, I don't know any of these people personally, but you can tell from afar there's something about Tim Scott. I wouldn't appoint Tim Scott to run a McDonald's. Not saying diminishing anything like that, but you have to compare and contrast. If he was to get a cabinet position in the highest realms of these United States, compare and contrast that with running a McDonald's. The degree of difficulty and the level of competency is totally different. And somebody like Byron Donalds, love Byron Donalds. Love Byron Donalds, but I need Byron Donalds to stay where he's at right now so he can govern, because we don't want any chance of a Democrat taking Byron Donalds' seat. And Byron Donalds is fine with it too. He's gonna have a say-so in Trump's administration. He's gonna push the agenda from his position that he's at now. He doesn't have to be appointed. He's way more effective in the position that he's in than he would be if he was in Trump's cabinet. Let's make that very clear. Like the Democrats like to say, let's make it very clear. Then they proceed to make it clear as mud. But let's make it very clear. Where Byron Donalds is at, he can be way more effective as far as Trump's agenda if he stays in his current position right now. He don't need to be appointed.
But I haven't heard anything from them, and there's a reason you haven't heard anything from them. Number one, Byron Donalds probably not interested in such a position. He's a representative out of the state of Florida. Cool brother, by the way. I got a problem with him being a Cowboys fan, but that's a different subject for another day. But I mean, the brother, he's a representative for Florida. He's got his sights set on one of two positions, from what I'm told. Marco Rubio is going to be the Secretary of State, longtime senator out of Florida, former presidential candidate running against Trump in 2016. He's now going to be the Secretary of State under the Trump administration. So Byron Donald is either interested in filling his seat, or, from what I'm being told, he might want to run for governor of Florida. And I got news for you. He'll have a good chance. He'll have a damn good chance at either position, personally. If you're thinking about Ben Carson, it's just me. But I don't want somebody serving the United States citizen that looks sleepy all the damn time. That's just me. That's just me. I'm not knocking him. But I mean, the man is a brilliant surgeon. His reputation speaks for itself in terms of his ability as a doctor and in the world.
I'm terrible at impressions, but I'm gonna try to do a Stephen A. Smith impression. That's just me. How did I do it? Tell me in the comments.
World of medicine, I get that, but damn it, he looks sleepy all the time. He makes me nervous. Because he looks like he's asleep most of the time. Larry Elder is another name. Former gubernatorial candidate out of California. Former presidential candidate, didn't have much of a chance, but smart, renowned radio host for many, many years, relatively polarizing figure. He can take the heat. Very intelligent, very capable. I'm not making these recommendations. I'm simply pointing out that if you're Donald Trump, there's certainly people from the African American community that you could have looked towards to include in your cabinet. So why are you not doing it? That's a question for Donald Trump to answer. That's a question for folks in his administration to answer. And if you are a black conservative, you definitely have the right to ask him that question. You definitely have the right to ask him, what about us? No, he didn't win.
Ain't no what about us over here. There's no what about us over here. Put who you think is best. That's it. Y'all still on that same racial identity, idolatry nonsense. No. Because by the fact that everyone that he just named that are black, that's the reason you're considering them. Don't consider them for that reason. Eliminate that.
In the popular vote amongst the African American community, but he damn sure inched into some of those numbers. Kamala Harris didn't beat him as decisively amongst the black vote the way Biden did and the way Hillary Rodham Clinton did. So I would take heed to that. I would pay attention to that. And it would be a legitimate reason to ask ourselves those questions. If it's an indication, and dare I say, something that foments fear within the African American community about what's in store for us, I say look at it a different way. See, everybody want to get in Donald Trump's way. I don't want to do that. The American people have spoken. He's won decisively, okay? You know what I say? Let him have his people. Let him have whatever he wants. Go ahead and govern. That way you have no excuses when things go awry. You can't say the Dems were in your way. You got the Senate, you got the House, you got the White House, you got the Supreme Court. What's up? You can't sit up there and blame anybody else if the economy falters, if inflation ultimately ravages our society, if things aren't handled at the border, if the streets of America are still riddled with crime. You can't sit up there and blame anybody else when you got everything you want and need in order to run a government the way you think a government should be run. You talk about the swamp that exists in the nation's capital, the cesspool that's been alive and ravaging through our country over all of these years. You got an opportunity to clean it up. Can't blame anybody. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't forever. So if he does the job, all right, fine. If he doesn't do the job, you can change course in 2 years. It's a midterm election.
So yeah, that's gonna be the end of this video. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what Stephen A. Smith say, but let's get rid of this representation type stuff because it never ends well. It never does any good. You gotta think about your own business. You're in business to make profit. And whether you want to agree or believe it or not, America is a corporation. And so you have to run it as such. Probably not as stringent and based totally on profits like corporations are in the country, but you have to run it similar. to that. So if you're on Facebook, you can like this video, Mr. Info 5000. If you are on YouTube, you can search for Mr. Info space 5000 spelled out, FIVETHOUSAND. Peace.